This is the Mainframe Connect podcast, brought to you by the Linux Foundation's Open Mainframe project. Sponsored by Phoenix Software International and by Infinity, a Converge company. Mainframe Connect includes the I Am a Mainframer series, the Riveting Mainframe Voices series, and other content exploring relevant topics with mainframe professionals and offering insights into the industry and technology. Today's episode is from the 10-part Mainframe Coven mini-series, honoring the past, present, and future women of IT.
Well, hello and welcome to Mainframe Coven, a podcast about real stories from the essential yet often unseen minds behind the machines. We are your hosts. My name is Jessielaine Punongbayan, and I'm a product manager for Dynatrace.
And I'm Richelle Anne Craw. I'm a software engineer for Beta Systems Software. Welcome to a brand new episode. I'm very excited. We have a very special guest. We have Lezlie Browder with us today. Lezlie is a technologist, chief solutionist, and IBM champion. She has decades of experience in mainframe technology, software development, IT leadership. She has served as a mentor in the Open Mainframe Project's Summer Mentorship 2023 program, and she actively participates in the IBM Z and Linux One communities, supporting and guiding younger technologists. Currently, she leads her own research and consulting brand, Eugene Alexander Research and Results. Welcome, Lezlie.
Welcome, Lezlie. Welcome to the Coven.
Thank you.
So let's start off with
Yeah.
our first question. And my first question for you is what do you remember about discovering programming in the 60s, and what drew you in?
Class. No, the only connection I had to technology, of course, it wasn't called technology at that point. Remember that, it was called data process. But my mother worked at a court reporting firm, and she would, the court reporters sat in court all day long, and then at night they had to transcribe. So my mother made extra money by transcribing for her colleagues. And we had IBM selected type in the kitchen over there. And that's how she did it, it's dictaphone and stuff. So I sort of knew what it was about, this data processing. But no, I was in the calculus class, and they came and said, you, come with us. And that's how I got into technology.
So you started programming with Fortran, and then you transitioned to COBOL and GIX and MQ, right? And Rex.
Yes.
And then
yes,
now
yeah.
I see more recently you transitioned to VS Code, Zoe, Python, and then you're interested as well in IBM Watson, and as you mentioned, Quantum, right? Can you talk through about those transitions in your career, and is there any shift that was stood out more than one or the other?
Right now is the quantum one, because I feel like, so we were here all along. What made us make the wrong turn? Or that stands out to me because the quantum frees us up to do more than left or right, ones and zeros. It frees you from that. And that's remarkable. I remember struggling a lot with that. One of my sophomore assignments was to get rid of the extra penny that happens with rate of change, and then you had to do the because international. I had to do the translation from what was the actual amount of money, what was the value of money that day in that country, and then do all of that, and I had to do it in COBOL because the organization would not let me do it in Fortran, and COBOL would not give me the precise number that I needed. I got to the point where I was guessing. I was taking the number out 16 or 17 digits past the decimal, trying to get closer. I rounded, I did everything. And so now that I think I'm very excited with quantum, just really excited.
Awesome. So in one of our episodes, we talked about six women, I know you've
Uh,
watched this episode, like if they
I watched
reverse
all of them. Yeah,
engineer.
they were. uh,
Yeah, they reverse
and
engineered the ENIAC, and because there was no manual. So in your experience, have you ever experienced something similar with the ENIAC? And can you talk about like that philosophy?
what? There was no manual,
Yeah, that
or
no
tell me.
manuals, like you have to do it on your own. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, and when there was a manual,
Mm,
it was so hard to understand. You
mm.
said, who wrote this? Because um,
Exactly.
I don't want to pick on some. I don't want to use the company. So let's just say it was this company that I worked for that
Mm,
had air codes and conditions codes and something. And you had to go through 3 books to get to the actual, this is what
mm.
happened. And when you
Yeah.
get there, sometimes you go, what was I looking for? And my thing was, I was so happy when these came out, stickies, because we use yellow stickies. Well, mine are blue now because it's more. But when they first came out, it's like this person is a genius because you would have to open this book, go to this page, look at that, look at that. Okay, stop. But
Mm.
you need something to hold there. Then you had to go to, and then it would say, go over here. So then get up and actually physically.
But it also sounds like you challenge yourself, like with the marathons, and then when you're transitioning from different technologies. And then we also know that you've lived through some major historical moments in tech, like you were in a bunker for Y2K, and then in 9/11 you were in
Yeah.
NYC, maybe several recession cycles. So I'm really curious about the lessons that you carry
The
forward
bump.
with you, like through all of that, right? When you're challenging yourself and then living through historical moments.
Yeah. Just go for it. It seems like we've grown into this where we listen to the opinions online more so than the opinions in your mind.
Mm.
It's like, no, I don't care. Of course I don't care now because, I'm using the host in the room, but um, just do what you think you can do. And the only way you can do it is, what did I say? You gotta do it. You gotta get up and say, I gotta get up. When you're marathon training in Georgia, you have to run like 2 o'clock in the morning. So we had a coach that would do that. And I would have to get up, drive to Atlanta, go way out to another neighborhood and run back, and we did it, and it happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think women um, need to remember that we can dream too, and we can, make accomplishments, and something is uncontrollable about what section cannot determine if you're going to be the winner. That
Yeah.
is like such a minute point.
I hear what you're saying. Like we just have to believe in ourselves, because we always, as women, sometimes we doubt ourselves, and so believing in ourselves really helps. So you've mentioned that, that in the mainframe environment, or at least in the programming environment, or biases were not productive. And what helped you stay confident and to navigate this situation, specifically, especially that you're one of the few women in tech around the time?
um, I guess because I just, that first experience being with those ladies who gave up their whole life, uh, just that every challenge that came along, it just was something to do.
Mm,
It was something not to fear. I didn't realize I was supposed to fear things because I was a female for a long time.
mm,
Because I mentioned I had two sisters, but I had one brother,
mm,
and he didn't have another brother, so we were his brothers. And he, when he would play with us, he forgot that we were girls, and he would like punch us and everything. And if we wanted to cry or something, he would tell us, "Don't be a softie." He used that other word, but I'm glad I didn't say out loud. But he would tell us, And then we would want to play so bad. We said, we're not, no, we're not that. Go ahead, and stuff. So for forever, I thought I could do it. A little girl, and I still get a couple of female mentees, and I tried to tell them, come on, you can do this, face it. So when I saw your video, when I saw those videos of the, you know, ladies from the very beginning, I sent them to all of them. Because, I want to say, you're not the first one. We're just going through, this is a phase right now.
Yeah,
You need to know the history.
Right.
It's like
exactly.
any group that does not know their history uh, tends to cannibalize.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I can
I
see
like,
that.
yeah, I like
Yeah.
how so like your confidence and this like you're very tough. Like in a way you have this tunnel vision of you have a goal that you wanted to do that everything around you doesn't really matter because this is who you are and this is what you want to do. And you have that like, you know, um you go
I'm
into that goal head on and I love that. You're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
confident and
I
tough.
just I go into it's crazy. I go into the tunnel and that's where I
Yeah.
stay until I can see it coming out.
Yeah.
It sounds like you
It's,
don't let biases get in the way of productivity.
uh, no, because while a person is being biased, you have the opportunity to be strategic.
So you
Mhm.
talked about early in your career that you, the environment you were in was very siloed. And now you're a mentor and instructor for students. Have you seen that kind of collaboration evolve, or is it? Yeah, have you seen those um, collaboration improve? Like not just in terms of the people involved, but the tools we use, the approaches, the processes, and so on.
I think it's yes. And so in some instances, I have seen it improve. In some instances, I have not, and so sometimes I get all involved and I introduce one of my newer, and this is not even a newer, just mentee to somebody, to an executive one just recently. And he said like the total wrong thing. So immediately I had to say, oh, he was not ready. So the thing about technology, you have to understand, I think you have to learn the technology and you have to develop finesse. And that's my job as a mentor. I'm the finesse coach. You're paying the teacher to teach you. So do not ask me, what did she ask me to help? Hash codes. Aren't you paying the teacher to teach you hash codes? I'm not here to teach you that. Okay, I can teach, but that's not the point. That's not the point of this relationship. I'm teaching you finesse. You have to remember when you learn how to do things in a classroom, there's an answer. Uh, it's a really a very sanitized situation and all those things. In the real world, it will not be like that. It will not always be an answer. It will be sanitized. You be told, no, you can't use Fortran because nobody else around here knows Fortran. Go back and figure it out.
I can certainly relate to your experience because my first experience in mainframe is I was very in a siloed environment. Like I didn't know how to learn the other tools and processes within the company. And then when I started moving to like more open source development, even the way I learn the technologies and the tools, it's different because it's more community based. So certainly I can relate to that.
Yeah.
But you know what the point is? It's doable. You did it.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Why are you thinking you can't do it before you even try?
Leslie, I'm curious to know because you mentioned about mentoring, you mentioned about teaching. So I know that you've been mentoring and teaching for like a long time, and there are different generations from before up until to now. Like how do you adjust to like those different generations? Like how do you bridge those generational gaps in terms of mentoring and teaching others?
Um, I felt like it was a came at a good time. So I copied what was given to me. I've been taken out in the hall. Was especially when I got to be in seventh grade with the same teacher I had from kindergarten and eighth grade. She was like, "What is the matter?" She was like, "Because now I have my own opinion, okay? And sometimes I don't want to, because she would like play games like if nobody else got it, she would ask me. And it was like, and I know that I already know the answer because we did it this summer. So I would do things like retaliate and stuff like that. And you learn from that. You learn from um she learned from me, don't expect anything from me. And I think I learned that you're responsible for your own intelligence.
So what I'm hearing is that normally what you do is you guide, but still it's a relationship between the teacher and the students, that students are still responsible for their own learning and you're there to guide them, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you.
I also taught literacy, and I learned a lot from the adult literacy, and I learned a lot from my adult literacy students. And so, no, yeah, I taught literacy to people who lived in Jersey City and had never been to Manhattan. If you could walk across water, you can get to Manhattan. Yeah, that was some of our field trips. I would take a group of adults on the train and in a bus to Manhattan from Jersey City. Yeah. He said, "Why did you never go?" They said, "We can't read the signs." I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm a little stupid too. Sorry." I couldn't figure it out. I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's very interesting because the what I want to talk about with you as well is that we know that you volunteer for Black Girls Vote. So I want to know like
yeah.
that type of your passion is not just in your professional life, but also you're volunteering for Black Girls Code and as you mentioned now the literacy program. So I want to know like what drew you to volunteer and if you can share some moments with the students there with us.
So a big passion. Like I said, I was raised by volunteers. You know, my parents even worked two jobs, and they still had time to volunteer. My mother was in charge of the Girl Scouts. They don't have to. I don't know. Girl Scouts because my sister was a lot to handle, so she's like, "I'll come. I know how to kill her." So I was raised. So my parents were always involved in the school. My mother used her vacation days to go on field trips, with my sister's class. Um, she even helped with the grounding troops and stuff like that. So I was raised with that example. My dad would always be out in the back porch making stuff, signs and props and stuff like that. It's like, what are you doing? And so they were all, I work with people. I mean, I live in an environment where helping out was just what you did.
Lastly, I also heard that you volunteer for Blind Service Association in Chicago. Is that
They
correct?
are yes. And so now we go to the brilliant people of the world. They are so brilliant. They get on my nerves. And I got one guy now, he just got his PhD. It's like, get on my nerves. It's like, you didn't write this paper. Yeah. The blind services people, but they are the most, don't let me cry. They are the most enlightening, determined, consistent group. One guy even taught me about lottery, how to, I would go in and I would scratch all these cards. I said, now what do I do? And he would tell me how to go through that process. And then I was like, wow, I didn't know what these were. I wasn't touching them.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought, it's like, okay. Some are writing books. just heavy on education. And so I'm glad. Now that's something I'm really glad. The text, okay, wait. The the text to talk. There you go. Where
Mm.
now the text to talks technology, I am so happy because that saved me. Do you know what it's like to read a book that you don't want to read for 2 hours into a recording? Yeah. So that used to be some of my assignments. And the machine that you had to use, it was like if you hit the wrong button on it, you could wipe your whole 2 hours out. And I would do stuff like, somebody come in here because I'm going to take a break, push the right button. And Sally, who could not see, would come in and go, click, 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 click. I said, Sal, I don't know. I just got a block. I can't. But they have introduced me. I love books. If this room was cleaner, you could see all the books. But I learned so much about literature. I learned so much about sociology. Of course, I didn't agree with anything I was reading. And we would go on field trips together. You know, Chicago does have museums. I know you all think it's just gangsters, but we have a lot of the best museums. So we would go to exhibits together. So I would have to describe the exhibit, and it just would be a wonderful thing. We would have all week. I have another person from Blind Services. In the code, they have these outside Christmas fair things, and Jennifer and I would go to that. They showed me up terribly in knitting, and I am a crafter. I am award-winning cake maker decorator in Atlanta. I didn't add that to anything, but I was a person that you did not want to be in a contest. Yes, I'll be wedding cakes. I take a whole week of work just to make a wedding cake. So yeah, it's, you know, some of that I've never done it before, but I know I can do it, man. You know, so yeah,
That's
Blind
so awesome.
Services. The Blind Services. One of the guys from Blind Services, just as I saw on LinkedIn, he just released another. He writes books. So Blind Services, you know what it teaches you? There's no way that you can have an excuse for not doing something.
That's true.
They're like the bottom line on what patience you can have for excuses. Because the fact that they just know my voice, as sweet as it is, know my voice, and they move around Chicago. They come from the suburbs. They all do not live right in the city. And they come to downtown Chicago. Blind Services has been there a million years. Not a million. They've been there a while because that where they are used to be at the Parker School. But yeah, Blind Services just and some of them are technologists.
Yeah. Were you teaching them though? Were you teaching them technology?
No, I didn't have to teach them technology. That's what I said. I used to say, God, so that's that thing where you actually see in life where if you are limited here, this thing called the human body has another place where it's on overload. And I would read some books to them that I was like, did you just understand what I said? They were like, yes. And then they would say it back. And I was like, how did you do that? I read it and I don't understand what I just said. So,
that's awesome.
No, they didn't have to learn technology. And now they don't need me as much anymore.
We saw in your LinkedIn bio that you mentioned that, you mentioned supporting aging and ill family members while continuing to teach and volunteer and, of course, advance your skills. Like, what helped you stay centered during those seasons? Like, while you're helping them and, this drive to advance your skills, like, what helped you to do that?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Eugene Alexander, those are my grandfather's first name. Now everybody knows. And both of them had a story. And one had been like orphaned at 5. And he and his 15-year-old brother came to Chicago, orphaned. And when they died, they owned property all over the city. I didn't live in any building that my family didn't own until I went to Texas to college. All that time, of course, I had a lot of bad habits. we destroyed my grandfather's, one of his apartment buildings. We didn't know that you couldn't put holes in the wall. We didn't know you could jump on. The landlord was my granddad, who just kind of let us, we like totally entertained him. So, so that's why it's called Eugene Alexander. That's what they are. Now everybody knows what see. So, well, it is real sweet. It's a composite of both of them together because they both had that spirit. So, how could I do that? Because I owe. You know, I owe. Yeah, I mean, how could I not?
Yeah.
You know, I had everybody knows my parents were overly generous. Oh, you knew what I did to get a sports car. The people at the I remember one guy, what I want, I'm not gonna take that to get out. And he said to me, if somebody was buying me a car, I would have a different conversation. And I just looked at him and said, I don't know. Yes, I don't know you. You know me. Get out of my conversation. So sometimes I'm nuts. But my parents would, I could debate with them about, and he bought the car. He bought the car I wanted. But I would debate with them about something, and then they'd say no, and then I'd go back and think about it. And my record is 32 days. It took 32 days to break my dad down. He said no 32 times. He said he will say yes 18. So how could I not help anybody? You know, how could I not feel privileged to help them? My mother had Alzheimer's. She was already eccentric. So it took a while for everybody to agree with me. And then, but, you know, then after that, it was easy. You know, we could do it. So there's no way. I mean,
but I think what's impressive to me is during that time you didn't stop your lifelong learning, right? You stayed curious about technology, you continued upskilling yourself, and based on our research, 40% of women say care responsibilities affect whether they stay in their tech careers, and then 12% even leave tech for caregiving. But I feel like for you, you didn't let it stop you. You continued to improve yourself. So I'm curious if you have any advice for other women who feel like they're being torn between caregiving and their careers.
Your life will go on. Now you might be 74, still working, or still just contributing to society. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't sound bad. That sounds good.
You know, so you don't, you know, so you got a choice. You can be sad about it, or you could just go for it. And then, yes, and the people, the literacy people, and the blind people.
Right.
Exactly.
They were the people I was hanging out with. You know, so it's like, so what am I supposed to say? Woo-woo? I don't think so. If they're not woo-wooing, what am I woo-wooing about? You know, so you know, I didn't have and like my mother, she just kind of never looked at that part of it. If it was something, I think after watching her in Las Vegas, we went to Las Vegas a lot. And I used to like to go with just my parents, pretend like my brother and sisters didn't exist. And it just used to be just a hoop. And it really was a hoop to see them in a whole different capacity. You know, I like it when I would be back in my room, and I would go there, and it's like they weren't there. And then like maybe I get up about 5 o'clock in the morning, and go in there and go, so when did you guys come in? They're like, what's the matter with you, old lady? You know. So I think that also helped, where I didn't have an environment where limitations limited our life.
So what message would you like to share with the next generation of technologies about building a career and having an impact similar to what you have?
Okay, some of us know this.
Yes.
wild. I'm not as wild as the good news is.
Mhm.
Okay, no, my glasses so I can look like really serious. Don't take yourself so serious. Yeah, just don't take yourself. You can make a mistake. You know, learn to laugh at yourself, but not, not to be silly, but learn to laugh at yourself and say, "What were you thinking?" I have many times where I said, "What were you thinking?" So I was like, I tell them, just you know, you don't even know what the world is going to be like. I'll be gone, but you don't know. I was raised in the 50s. This represents nothing that I thought was going to happen. Nothing. Nothing. So that's all I can tell them. Stop thinking that you can figure it out already.
Mm.
Just go with this part. And then once you get that, then go with the next part. Once you get that, then go with the next part. But you're not going to take that from here. You're a baby. If you're not 45 years old, you're a baby. So you can't go from this to there or this to
Yeah.
74.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
You got to survive this. I'm not sure where we're going. You got to survive this. You got to stay awake. You got to know where to be grateful. You got to know where to be helpful. You got to know where to challenge yourself. That's it.
Mm.
Yes.
Like taking one step at a time, and don't rush
Yes.
into things.
Right. And
Well, thank you so much, Lezlie,
thank
for
you
your
for
time.
listening to me.
Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom. I really, really love your toughness. I love that what I've learned from you is that we need to face life, not just technology, but life head on. And do not entertain those negative thoughts that you have a goal, just go through it. You have no excuse and you have to toughen up, and always like what you said with failure, just stand up and like go for it, and you can achieve your goal for sure.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It has been such a delight, like just hearing your stories and hearing how you've made an impact, not just, in terms of technology in your professional life, but outside of it as well in your volunteering. It's very inspiring and I'm really happy that we got to speak with you. So thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, glad you better.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
thank well,
Peloton.
yeah. Thank you, Lezlie. And thank you everyone for joining us in this episode.
You will find links and resources from today's episode in the show notes.
Follow, rate, and subscribe wherever you got your podcast. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mainframe Connect podcast and this episode in the Mainframe Coven 10-part mini-series sponsored by Phoenix Software International and Vicom Infinity, a Converge company. Like what you heard? Subscribe to get every episode or watch us online at openmainframeproject.org. Until next time, this is the Mainframe Connect podcast.